Oh, goodness. Okay, I'm clear. I'm clear. Wow. I'm sorry, Rachel. So horrible, horrible. And now I know that your siblings were also being abused. So was there any kind of like togetherness, like with them, or were you pitted against each other, or how was that? I know they were older too.
We were pitted against each other. So in our dynamic, the dynamic between myself and my closest in age siblings, who were 5 and 7.5 years older than me, they were very, very close.
You're the youngest?
I'm the
I
youngest.
see.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was the snitch, apparently. And I was,
What does that mean in that sense?
so I dobbed on them. Apparently, I dobbed on them. And I've heard, because my father had
To
three
whom?
children beforehand, there
To
was one
whom?
within those three that was also considered the snitch. So
So
the dobber.
how did you supposedly snitch on them? To whom? To your father?
Uh, I remember one incident where I did that, but apparently I did it all the time. But I don't have memory of it. My
But it
father
was
was
you were basically reporting, yes?
basically, yes, yes, that's
I
what.
I want to get to that because I mean there's still a little bit from these underground the tunnels. There's an experience that you've related about being made to alone in a small space around. Yes, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
Sorry
It's
to
okay.
bring it
That's
up.
so that was my sensory deprivation training, I believe. So my father would take me down. So the tunnels that we lived on top of were quite sort of narrow, but there were other areas where there were much wider, larger tunnels. And there was one very large water tunnel that you could walk through comfortably that was quite wide. So, and that had these subsidiary smaller tunnels that would have an opening, roughly about that wide. So you've got a circle, a tunnel of that space. He had, with his telecommunications work, they would have these barrels that the wires or the cables would come off. He had one of those that he would squish into this tunnel opening, so that once I was placed in there, I couldn't get out.
Oh goodness.
And he had this was elaborate, Anneke. He had fashioned it in a way that he could actually open up a little small hatch so that he could put food through, or that he could actually look through and
Oh,
see what you
so
were
you
doing
were
with the
there for a
torch.
long time. You were there so long you even had to be fed because I know that that's not really, they're not generally in the network so considerate that
No,
they're going to give you food. You just help yourself whenever you can. So he must have known that had he not fed you, you would have died. And it wasn't his plan to kill his own children, obviously.
no, no.
Were you supposed to follow in his footsteps?
Yes,
Become part of the cult that he was?
he would surgically uh, assault his victims, and he wanted me to do the same. And he openly wanted me to be a
I'm
doctor,
sorry,
surgeon,
the word surgically, did you say?
surgically. So, like a surgeon, so he would cut into his victims
Oh,
and sew them up and things.
oh,
Yeah,
I'm
and
sorry.
that's what he wanted me to do.
Oh, he won. Oh, goodness. He won. Okay. I'm sorry.
It's all right, darling. It's all right. It's just the truth. It has to be
Yeah.
said. Yeah.
So, um, your sensory deprivation training, as you call it, you couldn't count the days, obviously, because it was dark.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Completely done.
and there was, so when you say sensory deprivation, there's nothing there, right? You were just in this very small space. You couldn't stretch out, I'm assuming.
I could stretch out when I was small. It stopped when I think I was about 4 or 5.
Oh, it happened a lot.
Yes. Yeah.
So
Only when I was very small.
very small. And you were left there for a long time.
Yeah.
Wow. And there was no point other than that you think it was part of the training.
I know that when he came to get me, and I was so appreciative to see him, I
Oh,
think that was something that he really enjoyed. He had done something horrible, but I would give him so much affection. until the day that I said I didn't want him to remove me, I wanted to stay in there, because I would have these out of body experiences where I would go off with the angels, or they would actually come and visit me, and a light
Wow.
would come in and I would be warmed up because it was always freezing cold in there. And on one of those occasions, he'd come shortly after one of those events, and I didn't want to leave. So I remember kicking and screaming and trying to get back in the tunnel, and he was furious.
Kind of backfired there, but
Yeah,
so narcissistically doing this to you, which, this complete deprivation of everything except a little food to keep you alive. He was then your savior, and he enjoyed the love that you then gave him for saving him. This sort of completely psychopathic pleasure of making your own child victim, completely dependent on you in this most desperate way, and then that kind of fear-based love, that's what he enjoyed.
yeah,
Mm.
basically.
Wow. And what a childhood, huh?
Yeah, yeah. When you
and
think
and
about it, it's horrific.
horrific. And then yet you're already describing that when you were like, you said you were in that place there, in that tunnel, it ended when you were 5 years old. And so you were getting help spiritually already.
Yes, it was.
So you were being made warm. You were having outer body experiences, but you didn't feel alone, it sounds like.
No, no, it ended up being probably one of the most profound spiritual experiences of my life, and a series of them in that space. So I was not alone. But I remember prior to that wishing I was dead so I didn't have to be in that space, and that's when they would come in. So it's yeah, it's quite amazing, really. And it's interesting because they were, whatever this was, it was intelligent and would communicate with me, and I would be shown aspects of the future that would then come true. So it was quite amazing, really.
Yeah, it builds faith.
It does. It does. It's hard not to have faith in those circumstances. Yes, and I say that a lot to people. Yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
easy when you've
correct.
had those experiences,
Yes,
and like
it's
near-death experiences as well. How can you doubt it when you've been there?
exactly. It's your personal experience. No one, it doesn't matter what anyone says.
No, no, exactly.
You know.
Yeah,
And so amazing too that so many survivors have these experiences, to have that help in these extreme circumstances. Um, um, so having this man as a father, and then your mother, who was extremely passive and very easily, hypnotized, um, and your siblings also being abused, or you being the youngest of five, is it?
6 at that point.
Six, six children. So he had a lot of children.
There's another one that was born in the 80s after me that I didn't meet until the 2000s,
Oh
2012.
wow! Oh wow! So he had
Way
lots of
later.
children. Yeah,
He had a secret family 2 streets away.
like this was, let's say, a deceptive on every level, but also
Yeah.
a complete psychopath. So before we go and talk a little bit about the Beaumont children case, I just wanted to ask you. I think you've shared with me once that you were mind control trained to be a recorder.
Yes. Yes.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
So, so children have certain gifts and abilities, and when you are exploited by something like a MK programmer, they will find the things that you have, the abilities that you have, the strengths, and they will capitalize on it. So
Absolutely.
one of mine was that I did have a very good memory. I had a photographic memory, so I would see things in my memory. So there'd be all these timestamps and lighting, and the way that I've been able to work out when I've been writing out my statutory declarations of my abuse is what time of year was it, what am I wearing, do I feel cold, do I feel warm in that memory, what's the sunlight, where is the sunlight in that moment, because the snapshots are very clear.
Mm.
So that's actually been of great benefit to me as an adult.
Sure, exactly. So I just
Because
wanted to ask, yeah, then that's what we're going to talk about in a minute. And that's why I wanted to ask you, so the programmers notice that you have this gift,
yeah.
they figure it out, and photographic memory is valuable. So what was the idea? What did they do then to enhance that for